How to find a great mentor. So, is this you? You are going through a tough time and you're thinking, I could really use a mentor in my life. Or maybe you have maybe hired a mentor or a coach or a therapist and it wasn't a great fit. And you're, kind of like once burned, twice shy. Maybe you've invested a lot of money in a direction that wasn't as helpful for you. Maybe you haven't invested money, but you asked somebody to be a mentor and they got overly involved in your life. All the mentor questions. Well, we're not going to answer all of them because I was realizing as I was typing out these notes, I have a lot of thoughts on mentors. So I'm going to try to hit the high notes that will help you. So, how do you find a great mentor? Well, we're going to keep it short and sweet. When the student is ready, the teacher appears. Okay, I'm teasing. I'm going to go deeper into it than that. But I've heard it a lot of times, and I've heard it very frequently in the last season. I could have used a mentor during this time of my life, or I really need a mentor now, or I joined this coaching program, but it wasn't as helpful as I wanted, or even the question, wait, would you be my mentor? And I have answers for all of those. So, first of all, just as a recap, I am using the term mentor to cover anyone who is helping another human being. It is very broad and it's very broad on purpose. And you'll see why I keep it broad because I think of mentoring as, um, because the way I think of mentoring, it actually serves me really well. And I want to share that with you. So, the reason I keep it broad is because I want to help you see that there are so many mentors available to you, no matter what kind of help you need. Now, I kind of gleaned this idea from reading a book, which I consider one of my frontline types of mentors. My very first experience with mentors was books. I learned so much from books. And I learned that this is a type of mentor, or that's how I think about it. In my mind, we have passive mentors and active mentors. So, passive mentors, I would generally group as anybody who is helping you in some way, whether they're aware of it or not. I remember growing up watching a couple of different people and asking them a question and learning from them. And they didn't know that I was learning from them. I remember two women in particular. One woman's name was Paula. She taught me how to iron shirts. And I was just like, oh my goodness, there is a method to this madness. And she had a refined way of doing things that I had never seen before. Then, when I went off to college, I met another woman. Her name was Roseanne Brown, and she continued that education in, if I had to call it anything, I would call it an education in refinement for this poor country girl who grew up on a farm and didn't know that cloth napkins existed. And so she was my mentor. She didn't know she was mentoring me. I was watching her. I was watching her as I was cleaning her house to make money for college. But I really paid attention to the way she did things and the way she thought about things and the way she hosted and her mannerisms and learned so much by watching her. My passive mentor in refinement, Roseanne Brown. Oh, I still love her. Anyway, that's a passive mentor. Books are passive mentors. In fact, I came across this topic as I was reading the book Deep Work by Cal Newport. I think I've read it before. I think I read it years ago, checked it out free from the library, but this time I decided to invest in my mentor and buy his book. And he talked about, doing your deep work and the importance of disciplined practice. And he said that in disciplined practice, there is you are focusing on one thing that needs your attention and improving it rapidly. And he said, but there's a second part. There is a redirection of your attention to the area that needs the most help. And I realized as I was reading that I could have used a mentor in my life when I was learning piano. So I didn't have access to a piano teacher for most of my life, so I taught myself. One of the benefits of teaching myself piano was that I learned you can learn a whole lot on your own. If you have access to nothing else, you can figure it out. Now we have access to YouTube. In fact, I'm going on a rabbit trail here. My daughter and I laugh at the commercials where they have the Oculuses, those little eye things, and they're showing this girl learning how to play. She's a teenager and she's learning how to play beautiful, smooth jazz piano music from watching an Oculus and just kind of playing on whatever surface. And it's like, yeah, if only it could happen as quickly as the commercial is implying. Oh my goodness, we crack up because we both try to be more jazzy in our playing. I taught myself to learn piano. But because I did not have a mentor, I did not have a piano teacher, then there were a couple of areas where I never directed my own attention to. I didn't have the awareness to. And one of those was finger exercises. So a few of my fingers are very, very weak, and I overdepend on other fingers. And so because of that, my ability to play, my skill is limited by the weakness of my fingers and because they're not as dexterous as they would have been if I practiced. Is it too late? No, I could still hire a mentor if I wanted to go deeper into practicing the piano. But that's the benefit of a mentor. They help you go deeper than you can see on your own. So, passive mentoring, it might be a book. One of my first coaches was a passive mentor, as in, I listened to her podcast, Brooke Castillo, and she literally changed my life because she created podcasts that I consumed. We had no active relationship. That's examples of passive mentorship. Now, the benefits of passive mentorship is that you as a mentor can create something and other people can absorb it and learn and benefit from it if you're not there. The other benefit of passive mentorship is on the side of the mentee, the person learning. If you don't have a lot of financial resources, you can invest your time and your attention and your energy to the best of your ability and glean what you can. It's a beautiful, beautiful opportunity to learn. And that's a wonderful way to start if there's no other way to start. But also, there is active mentorship. Now, active mentorship can be free or paid. I have seen some people that are so incredibly generous with their time and they enjoy mentoring people. And this can be a mutually beneficial relationship. Somebody is teaching somebody else, and as they are teaching that person for free, they are also learning how to be a better teacher. In fact, that was how I became a better coach at the beginning, was because I coached for free. And so I was mentoring someone and also benefiting from the mentoring relationship by honing my own skill, my own craft. One of the benefits of paying for your mentorship somehow is it kind of formalizes the relationship. So it can be really hard. And I've heard this before, and I've heard this frustration kind of on both sides. I've heard the woman who has said, somebody has asked me for my advice. I gave it to her. She didn't take it. I shared it again. She asked for it again. I kept on sharing. She never did anything with it. And I got frustrated. And it's like, yes, I understand. And then there's also the other side of I've heard from the woman who says, I asked this older woman to help me. Now, this is happening in churches a lot because there is a biblical teaching about older women teaching the younger women. And so a younger one might have said to me, I've asked the older women, hey, would you be my mentor? And she's like, I don't feel capable. I don't feel like I have the time. I'm sorry. I'm not comfortable. Sometimes there's a frustration on both sides. Don't be frustrated because you're thinking this is the only mentor that's available to you. We've got so many mentors. But let's say that you really want to learn from this woman who doesn't have time. Number one, let me tell you some do's and don'ts with your free mentor. Don't ask her to be your mentor. Just ask her, hey, can I take you out to coffee sometime and pick your brain about something? That lowers the pressure on both sides. Do you see the difference when you're saying, hey, would you be my mentor? And she's thinking, oh my gosh, no, there's still stuff I'm learning, or no, I've got so many things going on. But when you say, hey, can I pick your brain? Can I ask you about this? Hey, do you mind if I ask you how you did this? So make it smaller, make it easier. Do what I did. Just watch them passively. That's ways of getting mentoring help without putting pressure on the person that you would like help from. How did you do this? Is a great question. But on your side, you need to remember that there is a difference between different gifts and different personalities. So you kind of need to separate principles from personalities. Maybe she parented her kids this way because she is an extrovert with a gift for teaching, and you're an introvert with a gift for listening. Understand the difference between principles and personalities. Okay. And that's on you, especially in free mentorship. All right. Also realize mentoring is this big responsibility, and some people are just not able to at this time, or they're timid, or they're not ready to. Okay. That's up to them. And here's what you should never say to another person. I want you to tell me if you see anything wrong in my life. Now, why do I say you should never say that? Because number one, that's putting an incredible amount of responsibility on somebody else that is not as present and involved in your life as you are. Will you tell me if you see anything wrong in my life? Number one, there's an assumption that they're going to be watching your life to the extent that you are actively involved in your own life. They can't see everything. Number two, to give that kind of attention to somebody else takes a price and a toll on their attention. And it pulls it away from something else. Will you tell me if you see anything wrong in my life? That is a hard, hard, hard thing to ask of somebody else, because it's like you're moving the responsibility from your shoulders to judge what's right and wrong in your life and putting it on them. And by the way, also be wary of the person that's like, oh, sure. Because number one, they may not be paying attention. Or number two, they may like that way too much. You have access to the same wisdom in the Bible as they do. Will you tell me if you see anything wrong in my life? And then three, what if you don't take it well? Well, now they're risking a friendship. Okay. It's just a lot to ask. If you see anything wrong in my life, that's like broad open question, no parameters. As you'll notice, I'm always saying, hey, mentoring, let's put some parameters on the relationship. It'll make it more intentional. For example, when I read a book, I am like, I am looking for help from this person in this very, very specific topic. It is always on you to measure, to weigh, to judge for yourself the value of the advice that somebody is giving you. It might be great advice for them, maybe not for you. This is why I like making sure, in my coaching relationships, that we're talking about principles and not relying upon personalities. So many times we do things because that's our personality, that's our way of doing things. But principles are universal, they help everybody. Personalities are helping some people, but not the way that other people would be doing it. Okay. So that was free mentoring do's and don'ts. Let's move on to paid mentoring, coaches, therapists. In fact, I'm not going to deal with therapists hardly at all, except to say they are a valuable resource if you're stuck and you don't know what is going on and you think there's a problem and you need healing, go to a therapist. Okay, let's say you need coaching. Ask yourself this. Here's some coaching do's and don'ts, especially if you're going to pay for coaching. And I think paying for coaching is great for a couple of reasons. Number one is because those who pay attention. Number two, because it formalizes the relationship between the coach and the coachee, the client. And so there is an exchange of money and there's an exchange of parameters. Like, what are we expecting from this coaching container? So, number one, ask yourself, how much can I afford to invest? Sometimes, and let's be honest here, you can't afford not to invest. I'm thinking specifically of if like your marriage is headed towards divorce. It's really rough, it's really rocky. And when you're saying, how much can I afford to invest? Sometimes the other side of that equation is, how much is it going to cost me if I don't invest and don't figure this out? Look at those two costs in that light. I mean, how much is a divorce going to cost me? Tens of thousands of dollars and mental anguish for months, if not years. And that's not to say that divorce is never an option. In fact, I did a YouTube video on this. But that is to say that it's an option that you want to be confidently choosing, not accidentally be left with the last option, is the option of last resort. Also, how much can I afford to invest? Time is an investment too. So back in the day when we were, my husband starting his business and I am a stay-at-home mom, homeschooling, and we are remodeling that 100-year Civil War home house. Money was very, very precious, but I was a stay-at-home mom. So I had a little bit of time and I'm a fast reader. So I read books. So I invested a lot of time when I could not afford to invest money. Same thing with my first coach. I invested a lot of time listening to every free resource she potentially had. Now, it's interesting now because the weight was then back on me to actively apply it to my life because she wasn't doing the heavy lifting there. She wasn't making it very specific to my life. So I was taking her general examples and make them specific. And that's also, by the way, why I myself do this podcast, because I want that resource to be out there for other Christian women who are looking for a mentor in their life. And maybe their money is not incredibly abundant. Maybe they have more time, or maybe they're just more comfortable with a passive relationship than an active relationship. That's why we do this. Oh, also, it saves me time because sometimes I point my other clients back to the podcast and say, listen to this episode. I already talked about this. So, time is an investment too. How much can I afford to invest? Then, when you're going with a paid coach, I want you to ask a couple more questions. What's the priority? So, I've seen this a lot. When we are headed in a new direction in our life and we are not certain of the next steps to take, but we're very, very eager to make progress. Sometimes we very hastily invest in the very next coaching program we see. It sounds amazing. It sounds exactly what we need. Listen, y'all, I did this the very first time that I invested in coaching, and it still works. It works. In fact, it worked great. But I learned this lesson from that. So when I became a coach, right after, right after I hung out my shingle, we shut down for COVID. But the day that the world shut down for COVID, I just happened, which I think it was God's grace, to meet a woman who talked about the benefits of marketing yourself online. Now, the day before that, I would not have been one bit interested in what she had to say. I was just getting on social media. I was just getting on Facebook, and I was already doing workshops and things and, picking up clients that way. But COVID happened. Literally the day that I met her. And so all of a sudden, her stuff became way more interesting. And I'm like, what is this marketing online and getting clients from Facebook all about? Tell me more. And so she was actually, she was the second person that I invested in coaching. And it was a group container, but we had a couple of one on one sessions. And thank goodness we had those one on one sessions because otherwise I would have been completely lost in the group container because I was such a newbie. I did not know what I didn't know. I mean, didn't know anything about online marketing, didn't know the word copywriting, didn't know what funnels meant, didn't know I knew what a website was, didn't know how that played into everything. The stuff, I mean, it was hard to learn because I didn't have very much of a foundation going into it. But like I said, we had those couple one-on-one things where I could ask more questions and she could see exactly where I was at. And she could say, oh, okay, skip module 1, skip module 2. I want you specifically to, listen to module 3, because that's where you're at. And that's what you need to learn next. And then she would, I'd learn that. And then she would do the same thing. Okay, now what you need to focus on is this. And at the very, very end, I remember her saying, April, I want you to focus on this specifically. And because she said it, she pointed me. She had so much to teach me, and I could only learn little bits of it. And she was specifically feeding those bits to me, and it was so beneficial. And in fact, I remember following her exact advice got me clients, even though I wasn't even able or capable of comprehending everything that she was teaching me. But this is where I learned the personality versus the principle versus the priority. So I needed her for marketing help. Okay. Many times I see people make the mistake of just grabbing a coach because they're the one visible or they're the one that their personality is there. And so, because they vibe with their personality, it's a great match, then they're like, this is what I need. And it might be. And by the way, I truly believe that you can take any coaching and make it work for you. I've done that. I did that with this woman. I've done it with every single coaching. I have hired coaches not for what they're teaching, but for who they are. And sometimes that's exactly what you need. In fact, the coach that I'm working with right now, it wasn't what she was teaching, it was who she was. I knew I could trust her. I knew she'd help me find out, where I was stuck in a certain area. And she did. It was amazing. But there's a personality versus a priority versus principles. And when you're going into a coaching container, you need to realize that. So when somebody is doing a group or a mastermind coaching container where there's more people, you really need to be aware of what is what they're teaching, the concept, the subject matter that they're teaching. Is that the priority that I need to learn right now? Or is that a year or so down the road and I need to learn something before then? And that's kind of hard to see sometimes. So, this is probably even more important advice at the beginning of your coaching journey is to consider working with a general coach or a life coach one on one. Because the benefit of one on one, yes, I will say sometimes they're more expensive, although coaching prices are all over the place. Um, and there's a good reason for that, which we probably shouldn't go into now. I'll see if I have time. But when you're working one on one, the benefits of it are that you can ask for the exact help you need, and a good one on one or general coach will find those things for you. Like you might think you need help in this area, and she does an assessment. She's like, oh, have you considered that you need help with this? The benefits of group coaching is that you get a community to go through and you're working on the same subject matter. So let's say, for example, that you're wanting to hire a parenting coach. The benefits of hiring a one-on-one parenting coach is that you get exact targeted help in maybe the least amount of time for your exact unique situation. The benefits of working with a group, a parenting coach that has a group format. There are multiple people there, and sometimes you will hear somebody else get coaching, that you didn't even know to ask that question. And so you're like, that was helpful. The reverse, the downside of that I keep on seeing, and you just need to be aware of it, is that sometimes if you're really not sure of where you're at or the help you need, then sometimes other people's questions can confuse you. I see that in business circles a lot. Somebody's asking a business about, how do I tweak my funnel? And how do I get my launch to convert better? And there's somebody else in the group that's like, oh, what's a funnel? What's a launch? What are you talking about? I was that person. So just be aware. But I will say this, entering into a coaching relationship with anybody can be as beneficial as you, the person who is asking for the coaching, will make it. Make your coaching work for you. That's what I did with my coach that I hired recently. I hired her because I knew intuitively I had worked with her before, and I'm like, I need her, and I'm not quite sure what I need her for. In fact, the program that she was kind of laying out, I'm like, I'm not even sure that I agree with it, but I kind of need her. And by asking questions and showing up, I realized, oh my goodness, yes, I couldn't see the wisdom of what you're teaching because I'm stuck on this, because we've dealt with this and cleaned that up. Then now I can see the wisdom of what you're teaching here, and deeply appreciative. So let's wrap all this up. Number one, how to find a great mentor. Be a little bit more aware of what you're needing. Don't go for personality, think principles of priority, or take at least all three of those in consideration. Also, there is passive mentors and active mentors. You can get a mentor at any stage in your life. We live in such an amazing time. There are YouTube videos for everything. There are podcasts for everything. There are books on every imaginable subject. There is somebody who has already helped you. When the student is ready, the teacher appears. But you just might have to do a little bit more work on your side by sitting with, what is the help I need? And if you're saying, I still have no idea, then I really would consider getting paid help, going to a general life coach and saying, where do I start? And if you're looking at somebody, you're like, I don't even think that they're a coach, but I really would like for them to be a mentor. Remember, you can watch them from afar and learn so much. And then, two, if you're going to ask them for help, ask them in a more specific way, as in, can I pick your brain on something? Three, don't be offended if they don't want to be your best buddy mentor, because we don't always know what's going on in somebody else's life. And, that's one of the things I do is know if I free mentored everybody, then I would not have time to do my podcast. So I consider my podcast to be my free mentoring. And then I reserve, time to take on 8 to 10 clients, at a time, because I go deep, so I had to really think about that, how much free do I want to give out? And for me, it was like, it's not that I'm not willing, it's that it stops being effective. So my decision, and I'm going to honor that, is that I'm going to divide my time between absolutely free, but very passive, as in, very general advice on podcasts that I hope is very, very helpful to you, or super deep dives one-on-one with just a few, knowing that if I can just touch a few lives, they can go and touch so many more. And everybody's different on these decisions. So don't be offended if your mentor says no, because they can still be your mentor and you don't even have to tell them. And when you go to pay for your mentor, be intentional with that too. Pay attention to the priority, the personality, the principles. Make sure you separate their personality from the principles they're teaching. Make sure you ask yourself, wait, would this be better in a one-on-one setting or a group setting? If you need a mentor and you don't have a mentor, it's not because there's not one available. You just have to look. And maybe somebody's asking, what is the range for coaching? And when I first started out, the range was, it seemed like about $100 a session was the cheapest that I could find for one-on-one coaching. In fact, I never hired a coach at that price. My first coach was a four-figure investment. My second coach was almost a five-figure investment. Whew, that was a lot of money for this frugal-minded girl. My third coach was a five-figure, it was $20,000. I'm not gonna say you get what you pay for because that might be true, but I will say this, that the more you invest, the more you pay attention, and also kind of we slow down and we really make sure our investment counts. And if you feel like you've invested and you didn't get your money's worth, you know what I would tell you to do? Go back, get your money's worth. Find all the pros, all the cons, all the lessons that you could possibly learn from having given this person any of your time, money, or attention. Because the amount of lessons that you can pull out are absolutely endless. And so, anyway, and oh, the other thing that I wanted to say was this. That is why I'm also have been taking the time to interview some amazing women. So a few weeks ago, I did an interview with Kristen Schmoke, who is a parenting coach. I did an interview with Coach Britt, who helps women who are balancing big careers and big goals at home. And I want to continue to do those because I really want to make sure that I just keep on sharing with you all these different opportunities of where you can find great mentors. I'll keep on sharing also the books that are great mentors to me. And also, I'll share that if you are one of those people that is looking for super deep, personalized one on one coaching to where you can really discover and highlight your strengths. You're stuck, in uncertainty, you're lacking clarity, you need help in your clarity, help in your relationships. That's the area that I play with, but it's I don't want to say super deep like to scare you off, but it's not everybody's cup of tea. But I look at everybody that I work with as, okay, you are a gem. Let us uncover all the facets. Let's sharpen you. Let us pull out your brilliance so you can discover who you're meant to be, what you're meant to do in this world, so you can bring the best of you to your relationships and enjoy the best of them. It's one on one transformative. And that's why I keep it one on one on purpose, so that you won't be distracted by what somebody else is doing or their questions. It's all about you, your life, and getting the most and giving the most to it. So, anyway, I hope this has helped expand your mind on different options you have to find a great mentor and also ease your mind on around fears of maybe getting the wrong one. Because almost maybe if you're intentional about it, maybe there is no wrong mentor for you. It's all about what you pull from them. Okay? Well, that's all I've got. I hope it's helped. I'll talk to you next time. Bye bye.